They warned me to stay away from the Dragon's Tooth Mountains. They said the peaks were a wound in the world-jagged stone that cut the sky, a place where fire slept under ash and old magic still remembered how to bite. They said if I ever stepped onto those trails, I would not return, but the mountains were already calling me. My name is Sarah, and I was born with a mark the elders could not explain. A spiral of ink-dark skin on the inside of my wrists, like smoke trapped under flesh, like a tiny galaxy spinning in silence. The midwife had crossed herself. The priest had gone pale. The oldest elder had looked at me the way people look at storm clouds gathering over a dry field. The void mark, they whispered. Bad omen. From my earliest days, the village treated me like a cracked cup, useful only until it shattered. Mothers pulled their children away when I passed. Men watched me from doorways with hard eyes. Even the dogs sometimes growled, not from anger, but from something like unease. Only Alia, the healer's apprentice, sat beside me without fear. It's only skin, she'd say, wrapping my wrist in warm cloth when the wind made it sting. A birthmark. It doesn't get to name you. I wanted to believe her. I tried, but the village had already written my fate in their prayers and warnings. And then the rain stopped. At first, it was only a late season. The streams thinned to threads. The river that fed our mills began to cough up stones. By mid, crops wilted in the fields like bowed heads. The wheat turned brittle. The orchard leaves curled and browned. Even the air tasted different, dusty wrong. Then sickness arrived, creeping like fog through door cracks. Children developed fevers that burned too hot. Old men coughed until their chests rattled. The healer worked until her hand shook, and Alia moved like a shadow beside her, crushing herbs, boiling water, pressing cool cloth to sweating foreheads. The elders held rituals on the hill. They painted symbols in ash. They offered grain they could not afford to lose. They shouted prayers at a cloudless sky. Nothing changed. Desperation rots into anger the way fruit rots into stench. And anger always looks for a shape to where it found mine. Whispers sharpened into accusations. Eyes narrowed when I passed. One night I heard my name spoken outside my family's door, low and venomous. Her mark poised the land. Her curse drank the rain. Send her away before she kills us all. I lay awake with my wrist pressed to my chest, feeling the mark warm, then hot, then warm again. As if something beneath my skin was breathing. Alia came to me at dawn, face drawn tight. They're meeting tonight, she said. The elders there, deciding what to do. I didn't ask what do meant. In a starving village, fear is louder than mercy. That night, under a thin slice of moon, I packed bread, a water skin, and a small knife. I left without waking anyone, because goodbyes would have made me weak, and weakness would have gotten me caught. I walked toward the mountains. Each step away from the village felt like pulling thorns from my own heart. I had loved them anyway, these people who feared me. I had watched their children grow, helped carry water, picked ERBs for the healer. I had tried so hard to be harmless. If I truly was a curse, then I would take myself away before they turned cruelty into ritual. The trail into the Dragon's Tooth Mountains climbed fast. The path was narrow, broken by loose rock and thorny brush that tore at my sleeves. At night, cold slid into my bones. The wind made strange voices in the cliffs, and more than once I thought I heard something massive shifting in the dark. The stories returned with every shadow. Dragons snatching travelers, fire turning valleys to glass, roars that cracked stone. But beneath the fear, beneath even my grief, there was something else. A pull, a humming, like a song played on the edge of hearing. And whenever I hesitated, my void mark warmed, as if urging me onward. On the third day, exhausted and half-starved, I reached a high plateau hidden between colossal peaks. Mist drifted over ancient stone. The air smelled of mineral and clean cold, and there cradled in a valley like a secret lay, a crystalline pool that glowed with soft ethereal light. Curled around it was the largest creature I had ever imagined. A dragon. His scales were black, not the dull black of soot. They shimmered like obsidian under starlight, catching dawn in sharp, brilliant edges. His horns crowned his head in a jagged halo. Smoke curled from his nostrils with each slow breath. Not angry, not vaping, just old. He wasn't hoarding the pool. He was guarding it. My legs forgot how to move. My heart hammered so hard I felt it in my throat. Ignis, the shadow flame, the legends had named him. The most feared. The elders said his heart was stone and his soul was shadow, that he hated humans for some ancient betrayal. I stood very still, because everything in me knew that one wrong movement could be my last. Then his eye opened. A slit, of molten gold fixed on me, and it felt like being seen by something that had watched the world change shape. A rumble rose in his chest, set a growl that vibrated through the ground and up into my bones. Terror clamped around my lungs and my wrist. Ignited pain blazed through my arm. I gasped and clutched the mark. White heat pulsed from the spiral, bright enough that even in the morning light I could see it glow. The dragon's growl softened, his head lifted, slow as an eclipse. His gaze shifted from my face to my wrist, and something gnawed against my mind. Images flooded me, mountains rising from molten earth, a spring born from a shard of starlight driven deep into stone, a long, lonely vigil, century after century, guarding the hot water that fed every stream below, and sharp as a wound, humans with torches and spears, shouting in fear. The flash of betrayal, the sound of pain that was not physical but spiritual, like a promise being snapped. I staggered, not from the mountain air, but from the weight of what I was seeing. The mark wasn't a curse, it was a key, a bond, a forgotten pact. I understood in a rush so sudden it stole my breath. My ancestors hadn't been enemies of the dragons. They had been dragon speakers, humans born with the ability to bridge minds, to carry understanding between short-lived villages and ancient guardians. The mark was the sign of that lineage, twisted by fear into superstition. I forced my shaking hand forward, palm open. "I am Sarah," I whispered. My voice sounded small in that vast place. "I mean you no harm. My village is dying. We need water." Ignis did not speak aloud, but the pressure in my mind shifted, deepening into something clearer still, not words, but intent. A question. "Why should I trust you?" He showed me more. Burned scales, arrows lodged between plates, flames used in defense, and humans calling it proof of monstrosity. He showed me the moment trust broke long ago, and the silence that followed centuries of guarding and waiting. Alone, my fear didn't vanish, but it changed. It became sorrow, respect. "They've forgotten," I said, and my voice steadied. "Fear taught them lies. But I haven't forgotten, not completely. I came because the mountains sang to me. Because your spring is the heart of our valley." I stepped closer until I stood at the edge of the pool. The water glowed against my skin, reflecting my face beside the massive line of the dragon's snout. Ignis lowered his head. He'd radiated from him like sun-baked stone. His breath was warm and smelled faintly of smoke and minerals. Slowly, I placed my palm against his snout. The moment skin met scale, energy surged through me, bright, clean, ancient. The mark on my wrist blazed like a star. And then, at last, words formed inside my mind, resonant and deep. "You carry the heart of the old blood. You remember." Tears stung my eyes, not from pain, but from relief so fierce it almost hurt. I wasn't a curse, I was a bridge. Ignis showed me the truth of the drought, not malice, not punishment, but nature amplified by a rock slide downstream that had choked the waterways. If he forced the blockage open with brute strength, the released pressure would flood the valley and drown the village. He needed precision, a human hand to guide the flow, to rebuild the channels, to steer water like a healer steers medicine, deliberately. A pact formed between us, old as stone yet new as breath. I would return to the village. I would stand before those who hated me and tell them the truth. I would lead them to clear the blockage and restore the forgotten waterways. In return, Ignis would release a controlled flow from the sacred spring, enough to revive the streams, cleanse the sickness, and give the land a second chance. When I came back, the village met me the way starving fear always meets the unknown, with stones and shouting. "The witch is back. She brought the curse home." I didn't flinch. My clothes were torn, my hands raw, my throat dry, but something inside me had changed. The mountains had given me more than answers. They'd given me a spine made of purpose. "Stop!" I shouted, stepping into the center of the square. "Listen to me." A stone struck the dirt near my feet, and then the light changed. A shadow poured over the village like night, falling too fast. Silence spread. Not because they became brave, but because their fear finally found something larger than me. Ignis stood on the ridge above the houses, wings folded, horns cut in the sky. His presence stole breath. People dropped stones without realizing it. Children began to cry. Even the elders looked small. Panic surged until Ignis released a long, sonorous call, not a roar of attack. An announcement. All eyes turned to me. I raised my wrist. The void mark glowed softly, steady as a heartbeat. "He is not our enemy," I said, voice ringing across the square. "He is the guardian of our water, the heart of our valley. The drought is not his curse, as our ignorance, our fear. We forgot the pact, and we turned the truth into a bedtime horror story. Alia pushed through the crowd, eyes wide with awe. She stood beside me without hesitation, just as she always had. If we do nothing, I continued, we will all perish. If we work with him, if we rebuild what our ancestors once kept alive, then the streams will return, the sickness will break, the land will heal. The villagers stared at the dragon, then at my glowing wrist, then at the elder, sweating, desperate, balanced on the edge between old superstition and new survival. For a long moment, no one moved. Then an old farmer hands cracked from dry soil, lowered his stone and stepped forward. What do we do?" he asked. That was the first crack in the wall of fear. It would not be easy. Trust does not grow back overnight. We had broken it for centuries, but for the first time in a season of dying fields and bitter whispers, something else appeared in the village air, faint as the first cloud after drought. Hope. I am Sarah the girl. They called a curse. There were. Wrong. I am a dragon speaker, and this is not the end of my story, it is the beginning. Asterisk. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you don't miss our next adventure.